So I'm going to try to do a really quick tutorial on a play button. I'm just going to whiz through it. I'm not going to talk too much. Using Illustrator to start with, make a triangle. Using the shape tool, arrow keys to reduce the number of points. I'm just going to round the corners. It's kind of a play shape, although I think it's a little deep. So I'm going to reduce the number of points here, the midway points, and just move that in a bit. Now, of course, that means that that curve is now a bit off. So I'm just going to go back to when it was all points rather than curves, move that in, then do the curving after. So now that's actually technically central, but it's not centered on the actual the mass of it. It's centered, it's centered in the if you drew a box around it, but it doesn't feel right. So you have to do it a bit more intuitively and center it on the sort of center of the mass of it. Okay, so that's a good start. We're just going to copy. I'm going to make that solid black, and I'm going to copy and paste that into Photoshop as a shape layer. I'm going to make the background dark. Going to make more of a glowing play button. I don't need to bring the circle in. I can make that here just as easily. On a new layer will help, otherwise it'll just be a part of the same shape. Okay, there's your play button. Yeah, no, I think what I want to do is actually show you a few using the layer styles, just apply some subtle effects. I'm going to use inner glow potentially to give it a bit more feeling of interaction with the light. Giving a stroke, which you can make pretty fat because obviously this isn't going to be this big. You need to make it pretty big. The stroke settings are all up here. I'm going to align it to the outside, and I'm going to make it a gradient itself, but more subtle than that. It's too pronounced, so we're just going to mimic the colors on the outside a little bit. Okay, now we've got a sort of, it's kind of implied material just from adding a bit of a gradient. Should probably make that even more subtle. It's quite interesting what you can do with textures. I've got, all these default textures in here like grass and trees. Not really what I want. I'd prefer sort of brushed metal or something like that. So obviously if you shrink it too small, you can see the repeat on the texture. It's not really what I'm after. Okay, so I'm going to go to Unsplash. And just get a sandstone or something. Let's try texture afterwards. That's pretty. It's actually not. I'm not sure I want that anymore. Yeah, kick plate. That's nice. That's nice. It's a little low res. I mean, it's huge. Maybe it's just out of focus. Oh, there we go. It reses in. Copy image. Let's paste that in here. Smart object it up. Now, a texture needs to be square. So I'm just going to bring this down to a square dimension for now. And just crop off the stuff outside the frame. I know there's lots better ways to do. Okay, I think I pressed T and then Photoshop's bugged out there. And that's kind of annoying. I can't dismiss that. Normally I'd swear. So obviously you want to reduce this hard line in between the two. If it's going to repeat, you don't really want that. So just do a quick hacky job and use the clone stamp to get rid of that blob. I don't want that blob. I don't want you, blob. That might have wrecked my whole repeat. The vertical repeat's going to have to look after itself. Anyway, define pattern. Let's do it. So this looks kind of like it's made of stone, which is not really maybe what you're after, but if it is what you're after, you know, if you want to make a moon rock play button, then that's a great effect. I quite like it crisp, but not. Okay, well, it's interesting to see, but I think it's also probably a bit of a waste of time. Okay. Well, now just think of the analogy which you want to create. Is this a metal button? Is this a metal? Is this embedded? Is it inset into this button, or is it embossed out of the button? You know, do we want it to be glowing? Do we want it to be holographic? You know, particularly in games, there's not a set way to do this. Normally you just leave it as a straight iconic representation. But with this we need to be a bit more interesting. So you can apply a shape stroke. You can also apply a layer style stroke at the same time. So you can get an opposite gradient running on that and get a sort of feel of a little bevel on the edge. We can also reduce the stroke on the outside because it's a little over the top. Annoyingly, it doesn't update until you actually hit return on that. Slightly annoying. So you have to kind of imagine the physicality of it if this is how you're doing it. So it's kind of got a slightly chevroned edge. It's embedded. It's an illusion. I might actually be better off flipping the gradient overlay. Moving that up slightly and maybe angling it slightly. That looks curved now because I put it on a reflected gradient. I think it actually worked fine like that. I'll bring that back. It's a bit pillowy, potentially. The inner glow is giving it a soft line there. So always nice to chuck a bit of noise on, actually. That can add a nice bit of grain to the feel. But as with all these layer styles, keep it subtle. Inner shadow, use it for what it's meant to be used for once. You can use the global light here, which can be really cool. Although I normally turn it off because I want to manually override it, but it can be useful. I mean, that looks really inset now. And then I guess you could have, when it's pressed, you could have this lit up in a really nice way. It glowed. So I'll just duplicate the play aspect of it, and we'll try and think of a light that we could have shining out of it. So just go back to Illustrator. For now, I'm going to make a little like LED type, not LED, LCD type pattern. This is going to be a bit overkill, but you'll see what I mean. Okay, first one, just grab a red, grab a green. I'm not going for perfect greens, but copy that, new document. I kind of want it square, really. 60 by 60. Paste that in. Smart object will do. That's fine. I'm going to make the background black. Cropping the edges a bit, and then make that a pattern. Call it LCD, but you know, that doesn't actually matter at this point. So you get this familiar look that you might get on an LCD screen. I'm just going to change that to overlay to give us a bit more light there. Time to change the stroke there. Seems a bit messed up. Maybe it was messed up already. Oh no, that's weird. So copying that messed up the gradient on the stroke, which I'm guessing is a bug, but you know, sometimes it's a feature with Photoshop. Just trying to get a little bit more of the color coming into the stroke. This is obviously overblown, but just trying to get a bit of color to imply sort of color interactions with the various things around it. Stroke again. That'll do. Inner glow. Replace it with a sort of color, you know. As if it was actually glowing. Let's have it coming from the center instead of from the edge. I switched the blend mode to vivid light, but you know, it takes a lot of like just trial and error here, finding the right one for you. I think vivid light's quite nice for now. It's kind of that screen effect that I'm after. So disabled, on. Now just with a blank layer on top, I'm just going to get a white brush and then set that to overlay as a highlight. It's quite a nice effect. It's pretty cheap and easy to do. You can pop one in the top corner if you want to make it look like the 90s. You know, that became all the sort of style on the web, particularly making buttons look all glossy. We don't really want that here, but we might want a sort of hit state on the button or something as well to show that it's been hit. The inner glow again is giving it that sort of pillowy look. We probably don't want. I mean, bevel and emboss can be useful, but it can be very easy to overcook it. I'm going to use the inner shadow now for a highlight, which it's obviously not. It's fine to use it as that, but it's not actually. You can add another one of those and make it black. And I guess it's conflicting with the one below it there. Okay, so that was a case of it. Turn off your global light. This little thing here, because once you change one, it changes them all. It can be pretty frustrating and confusing. Turn that off. Put it underneath. Just going to make it normal for now, so I kind of know where I am a bit more. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. So we've got on, we've got kind of off or disabled. There you go.